I'll give you the Ferrari if you can get it to run.
Jonathan Blackwell's laughter echoed across the luxury car dealership's courtyard as he pointed toward a completely wrecked red Ferrari lying in the corner of the parking lot, a monument to failure. Walter Johnson, 72, had come only to pick up his granddaughter, who worked as a receptionist. But when his old Ford pickup broke down right in front of Blackwell Luxury Motors, the real estate billionaire couldn't resist turning the moment into his own personal entertainment. "Look, everyone," Blackwell shouted to the salespeople and customers gathering around. "This gentleman here seems to know a thing or two about cars, doesn't he?" Sarcasm dripped from every word as he watched Walter trying to start his 1998 pickup truck. The Ferrari in question was a 2019 model, completely destroyed in an accident. Blown engine, bent chassis, fried electrical system. It was literally a pile of red metal, which Blackwell kept as a trophy from the time he had successfully sued the young heir who destroyed it in an illegal race. "5 mechanics have already said it's impossible to fix this machine," Blackwell continued, now filming with his phone for social media. "But I'm sure someone with your experience can figure it out, right?" Walter stepped out of the pickup slowly, his calm eyes scanning the wrecked Ferrari. The laughter around him grew louder when people noticed his calloused hands and simple work clothes. What none of them saw was the glimmer of recognition in the old man's eyes as he studied the wreckage. "Sir," Walter said quietly, "may I take a closer look?" Sure, Blackwell laughed, almost crying with amusement. "You can even get inside if you want. Just don't hurt yourself on the metal." As Walter approached the Ferrari, ignoring the laughter and cruel remarks, something in his posture changed. His fingers brushed the dented hood, and for a moment an almost imperceptible smile crossed his face. What Blackwell and his privileged audience didn't know was that those calloused fingers had built far more than they could ever imagine. The humiliation that Blackwell had planned as a 5-minute show turned into a cruel spectacle that lasted over an hour. Other customers began to film, sharing it on social media with hashtags like "old man trying to be a mechanic" and "Ferrari impossible." "Everyone, check this out," Blackwell shouted to a growing audience. 30 minutes in, and he still thinks he can do it. What admirable determination. Laughter echoed across the lot as Walter continued meticulously examining every component. His granddaughter, Rebecca, had left for lunch and hadn't yet returned. No one knew she worked at the front desk, which made the situation even more entertaining for Blackwell. He was humiliating a stranger without consequence. "You know what impresses me the most?" Blackwell said to his 200,000 Instagram followers on his live stream. "The confidence. Look at him, completely focused, as if he actually knows what he's doing. It's almost touching." Walter didn't respond. He quietly removed the control panel, his hands moving with precise, expert rhythm. These weren't the movements of a man guessing. They were the confident gestures of someone who knew exactly where everything belonged. "Hey, old man," shouted Ryan, one of the salesmen. "My dad owns a bike shop. I can get you a job there if this doesn't work out." The crowd roared with laughter, but Walter didn't even look up. At 72, he knew that dignity lay not in words, but in actions, and his actions were telling a story none of them were prepared to hear. What no one knew was that Walter Johnson had spent 45 years of his life working on something far more complex than luxury cars. While Blackwell inherited fortunes and manipulated contracts, Walter had devoted 4 decades to transforming ordinary metal into engineering miracles. 45 minutes, Blackwell announced, checking his Rolex ostentatiously. "Impressive. People usually give up at 10. Walter didn't react. His hands kept working until finally he spoke, without lifting his eyes. "Mr. Blackwell, may I ask you a question?" Blackwell froze for a moment. How did this man know his name? "Have you ever built anything with your own hands? Something that existed only in your imagination and became real through your work?" Caught off guard, Blackwell tried to recover. "I built a real estate empire," he said. Walter shook his head. No, that's not building. That's buying. An uneasy silence fell over the group. There was something in Walter's voice, quiet authority that didn't match the image of an helpless old man. 2 hours passed before Walter asked for a specific tool. Philip's screwdriver, number 2, with an insulated handle. Ryan stammered. I don't know if we have that. Drawer 3 of the red bench, second shelf, next to the Torx keys. Everyone turned to look at him. How could he possibly know that? Blackwell forced a laugh. Impressive. You must have worked in a lot of shops. But his confidence was faltering. At that moment, Rebecca returned for lunch and froze when she saw her grandfather surrounded by a crowd. Her stomach dropped. She knew Blackwell's cruel nature all too well. What's going on here? Ah, an employee, Blackwell grinned. Come see. Your friend here thinks he can fix a Ferrari 5 expert mechanics declared a total loss. Rebecca stayed silent. She knew exactly who her grandfather was, but revealing it might cost her job. So she watched, trusting his wisdom. Walter had accessed the Ferrari's main electrical system. His fingers moved with precise, expert rhythm. These aren't signs of an accident, he said at last. This engine was sabotaged. A murmur ran through the crowd. Blackwell laughed nervously. Sabotaged? What imagination! It was a documented accident. Of course it was, Walter replied, holding up a burned wire. But whoever investigated didn't know what to look for. See here? This wire was cut, then scorched to look like overheating. And this twist mark? That's from a forced manual brake. Even to the untrained eye, the evidence was clear. Someone had deliberately destroyed that Ferrari. You can't prove any of this, Blackwell snapped. Walter smiled softly. Actually, I can. Every engine has a unique wear signature, and when you've built enough of them, you can read those like fingerprints. Rebecca's heart raced. Her grandfather wasn't just any mechanic. He had been chief engineer of Ferrari's racing division in Maranello, Italy, for 45 years. And the engine in that wrecked Ferrari, he had personally designed it. Sir, Walter said, looking Blackwell dead in the eye, may I ask you a question about the insurance you received for this Ferrari? Color drained from Blackwell's face. Walter wasn't just fixing an engine. He was exposing a multi-million-dollar fraud. As he removed the last damaged component, he said quietly, when you spend decades building perfect machines, you learn that every imperfection has a source. Every break tells a story, and every lie leaves traces that can't be erased. 45 years, Walter said softly. That's how long I spent building engines like this in Maranello. The word Maranello silenced the crowd.
Even the phone stopped recording for a moment. Impossible, Ryan whispered. Walter smiled and lifted a small metal plate. Serial number F209WJ447. The initials WJ stand for Walter Johnson. I designed this engine in March 2019. Blackwell's face went white. Mr. Blackwell, Walter continued, would you like to explain how an engine I designed to be fail-safe suffered an accident that damaged the exact 3 components that guaranteed the largest insurance payout? By now, the crowd realized what was happening. Walter wasn't being humiliated. He was uncovering a crime. Blackwell stuttered. You can't prove that. Oh, but I can, Walter said, raising his phone, because while you were busy humiliating me, I recorded everything, including your own admission about the insurance payout. The audience gasped. And then Walter's phone rang. He smiled. May I take this? It's Maranello. He put the call on speaker. Walter, Dio mio, came a deep Italian voice. I just saw your photos. Impossible. That's the engine you designed for the American customer Blackwell, yes? What was it doing in an accident? Exactly my question, Lorenzo. Especially considering it was built with a safety system that prevents the failures this accident supposedly caused. That Ferrari was sold with fraudulent insurance, said Lorenzo Benedetti, director of engineering at Ferrari. Record everything. We're sending this to our legal department. The color drained completely from Blackwell's face. 10 minutes later, Walter reconnected the final circuit. The engine roared to life. Smooth, perfect, unmistakably Ferrari. The crowd erupted in applause. Rebecca stepped forward. "Grandpa," she whispered, "how did you know it was your engine?" Walter smiled gently. "When you create something with your own hands, you recognize your work, even in ruins, just as you recognize when someone tries to destroy it." 3 weeks later, Walter Johnson sat in an FBI office in Los Angeles as agents reviewed hundreds of documents. "Mr. Johnson," said Agent Martinez, "your analysis was crucial. Blackwell Corporation defrauded insurers of at least 17 luxury vehicles over 5 years using the same sabotage technique you identified." Walter nodded calmly. Patience, he knew, was more powerful than anger. Blackwell was arrested yesterday, resisting arrest, bribery, obstruction, and fraud. He'll be behind bars for a long time. Meanwhile, Rebecca had been promoted to general manager of the dealership after new owners took over. Integrity, not arrogance, was now their standard. "Grandpa," she said on the phone, laughing, "you won't believe it. Ryan came to apologize. He says he still can't sleep after seeing the video." That video had surpassed 15 million views worldwide, a story of prejudice, dignity, and redemption. Weeks later, Lorenzo Benedetti flew from Maranello to Los Angeles to meet Walter in person. "Walter, my friend," he said before a room full of journalists and car enthusiasts, "Ferrari owes a great debt to men like you. Your dedication, precision, and integrity have shaped not only our engines, but our entire reputation." The company announced the creation of the Walter Johnson Scholarship, a program that would fully fund engineering studies for young people from disadvantaged communities who demonstrated talent and passion for mechanics. The first class would include 10 students, aged 16 to 22, all selected on merit, not family connections. But perhaps the most significant change took place in the community where Walter lived. After decades of working quietly in his garage, repairing neighbors' cars for nominal fees, he had become an almost mythical figure. Young people from the area began seeking him out to learn mechanics, and Walter discovered a new passion: teaching. The difference, Walter explained to his new students as they worked on an engine, between a good mechanic and an exceptional mechanic isn't in the tools they use, it's in the patience to understand each component and the respect for the work they're doing. Marcus, a 17-year-old whose father had abandoned the family, became Walter's most dedicated pupil. "Mr. Johnson," he asked one day, his hands still working precisely and smoothly on the engine, "how did you stay so calm when that man was humiliating you?" Walter smiled. "Marcus, I've learned one thing in 72 years of life. People who need to put others down to feel important have already revealed everything you need to know about them. True strength isn't in responding in the moment. It's in building something so solid that not even 1,000 mean words can destroy it." Meanwhile, Jonathan Blackwell faced a very different reality. His real estate empire had completely collapsed when investigations revealed that multiple projects had been financed with fraudulent insurance money. In addition to prison, he lost his mansion, luxury cars, yacht, and, most painfully, the respect of anyone who had ever admired him. Videos of his public humiliations circulated constantly on social media, always accompanied by comments about the importance of treating all people with dignity. His arrogance, captured in high definition, became a case study in business schools, a lesson in how a lack of character can destroy an empire in a matter of days. Ryan, the salesman who had mocked Walter, sought out not only Rebecca but Walter himself to apologize in person. The meeting took place in the same garage where Walter now taught, surrounded by young apprentices of all ethnicities and social classes. "Mr. Johnson," Ryan said, visibly embarrassed, "I know my words were inexcusable. I have no right to your forgiveness, but I needed you to know that I've learned a lesson I'll carry with me for the rest of my life." Walter stopped what he was doing and looked directly at him. "Son, we've all judged someone by their appearance at some point. The difference is in what we do when we realize our mistake. You're here, apologizing, trying to grow as a person. That's more than many would do." He extended his hand, greasy but firm. "If you really want to redeem yourself, come help teach these young people about honest sales. They'll need to know how to deal with customers when they open their own shops." Ryan's transformation was remarkable. He began attending Walter's classes regularly, not only helping with sales knowledge, but also learning about humility and respect. 6 months later, he was promoted within the dealership's new management, this time on genuine merit, not flattery. The Ferrari that Walter had repaired became a permanent attraction at the dealership, now renamed Johnson Premium Motors. A plaque next to the vehicle told the full story of that transformative day, serving as a constant reminder to employees and customers of the importance of never underestimating anyone. During the grand opening ceremony of the new dealership, Walter was invited to speak before an audience that included mayors, business leaders, and journalists. His speech, simple and direct as always, resonated far beyond that event. For 45 years, I built engines that took people to the farthest corners of the world. Today, I realize that the most important engine I can help build is the next generation. Young people who understand that true success comes not from diminishing others, but from elevating oneself through honest work and dignity. The audience rose to its feet in a standing ovation that lasted more than 5 minutes. Among those present were dozens of retired professionals, doctors, engineers, teachers, and artisans who had faced similar prejudice after leaving their careers. Walter's story had become a symbol of resistance and dignity for an entire generation that refused to be invisible. 6 months later, the Walter Johnson Scholarship had grown to 50 students, funded not only by Ferrari, but by donations from people around the world inspired by his story. The program expanded to include not only automotive mechanics, but also aeronautical, naval, and renewable energy engineering. Marcus, the young man who had asked about patience, was accepted into the California Institute of Technology on a full scholarship, carrying with him the lessons he had learned in Walter's garage about persistence, respect, and excellence. In his acceptance letter, he wrote, "I have learned that true knowledge comes with humility, and that the greatest honor is to use your skills to lift others." Last week, Walter received an unexpected letter. It was from Jonathan Blackwell, written from prison. The letter, respectful and genuinely remorseful, asked for forgiveness and acknowledged that the day at the dealership had exposed not only his financial fraud, but his moral bankruptcy. He had finally understood that true wealth was never in material possessions, but in the respect a person builds through their actions. Walter responded with the same dignity that had always characterized him. He did not offer easy forgiveness, but he recognized the courage it took to admit such profound mistakes. The first step in rebuilding a life is to fully acknowledge the damage we have caused. The second is to devote the rest of our days to repairing that damage through actions, not words. Today, at 73, Walter wakes up every morning knowing his life has a renewed purpose. His garage school is visited by engineers from around the world, all wanting to meet the man who turned a moment of humiliation into a movement of global inspiration. Rebecca often watches her grandfather teach and reflects on how a single day changed not only their lives, but the lives of hundreds around the world. "Grandpa," she said recently, "did you know this was going to happen when you accepted his challenge?" Walter smiled, his hands still precise even after decades of work. "Honey, I've learned that when you live your life with integrity, you don't need to plan revenge. Life takes care of putting each person in their rightful place." Walter Johnson's story proved that the best revenge is not to destroy those who hurt you, it's to build something so extraordinary that their opinions become completely irrelevant. He turned decades of silent prejudice into a force that changed lives, proved that true greatness never depends on skin color, age, or bank account, and showed that a man of integrity can defeat any empire built on lies. And if you also believe that dignity always triumphs over arrogance, that knowledge overcomes prejudice, and that one determined person can change the world one life at a time, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove that in the end, justice always finds a way to prevail.